Alright, so in this video I was going to go over how to make your gameplay a little bit nicer in the rock, paper, scissors algorithm, and then also how you would input the user's input as a string, and then use strings to implement this algorithm. Alright, so to make things play a little bit nicer, when the user types in their rock, their paper, or their scissors, let's have them type in the word rock, paper, or scissors. Let's just see how to do that. Maybe you like them typing in the numbers, but let's just see how we would do that. Now if we wanted to have them type it in as a string, then I'm going to have to take that input in as a string. So I'm going to have to use the next line method. That grabs the input up to the end of line character and places it into input. Now if I want to keep the logic of my code running the same way, I'm going to have to take that string and convert it to an integer. So remember with Java 7, we can use strings inside of our switch statements. And now I can say, okay, if the user typed in a rock, go ahead and make user choice equal to that 3. And then break. And then do my other two choices that the user could have typed in. So paper or scissors. Remember to use Control-C and Control-V. And if the user chose paper, we will make that a 2. And 3 was scissors, and rock was actually a 1. All right, now we've converted that user input, if they typed in a rock, a paper, or scissors, either into a 1, 2, or a 3. Now the user could type in rock with a lowercase r or rock with an uppercase r. So to make it into all lowercase input, I will take the string inputted by the user and use a string method. So I can use the dot operator right there and call the to lowercase method, which will take that string input and make it lowercase. So then I only have to check for the lowercase version of rock, paper, or scissors. Now what I'd also like to do to make gameplay even better is if they type in something wrong, I can have them stay here and keep putting in their input till they type in the correct input, which I am looking for. So I'll go ahead and make my default case. And in my default case, I'll have the user's choice equal a default value, which I could check for. So let's have it equal 0. So if they type in something other than rock, paper, scissors, it'll come to this default case and set user's choice equal to 0. I can even make user's choice up here that default of 0 so things work correctly. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this part of my code that I want to repeat into a while loop. I could have made it a while loop as well. And I'll go ahead and keep looping this code while my user choice is equal to 0. So if they type in something wrong, user's choice will stay at 0 or be set to 0. And now I can keep on asking them to enter an input until they enter in rock, paper, or scissors and set that user's choice to a number other than 0. To see how this works, we can go ahead and run our code. And now I can type in rock, and the computer chose rock, and it was a tie. So you can see that things are working, and my gameplay is a little bit neater now that the user can type in these strings. All right. Now, just to show you how you can compare strings and do things with strings, I'm going to change my code up a little bit. Of course, this is perfectly acceptable code as it is right now. But I'm going to go ahead and program this a different way just to show how we could compare strings. So I'm going to go ahead and take this switch statement out. I'm going to have the user, let me do a Control A, Control I so you can see how our code is working now. Oops, I left this curly bracket in here. Okay, so I pretty much have taken out this part of my code that I just wrote. Now go ahead and I'm going to have the user type in rock, paper, or scissors. And now what I'd like to do is have the computer have his choice also as a string. So I'm going to come up here. Actually, I need to change something else up here. I'm going to go ahead and make this a string. And remember, it worked perfectly fine before, but I'm just doing this so that I can show you how to use strings. So if I have the user's choice as a string and a computer's choice as a string, I have the user type in their string, and I store it here in user choice now. And I don't want to redeclare him. So I'll put my user choice into user's choice, and then I'll put my computer choice into a string, but it's saying, hey, you're trying to put this integer into a string. So what I'm going to have to do is make this an integer. So my random number can be this integer. Then I'm going to take this integer and do some switch statements to switch which integer equates to a string. And so I'll have my case 1, 2, or 3 still. And I'm going to base it off a choice now. And inside of here is where I'll set computer choice. So inside of my switch statement. So as I output rock, paper, or scissors, I will set computer choice equal to rock, paper, or scissors. Now remember that I created these variables rock, paper, and scissors up here, but I made them integers, and so that's why it's giving me that red underline. Remember that if I want strings and I want things to work with strings, I need to put quotations around rock, so you equal the string called rock and not the integer called rock. I'll go ahead and do that in my other two switch statements here. And I will go ahead and equal paper and go ahead and equal scissors. So now I'm working with two strings. User choice is a string and computer choice. So now when I come down here, you could see that it does not like using the equal equals operator with a string comparing it to an integer. So now I need to use a string method to compare these things, to compare two strings. And I can use the equals method. Now remember that the equals method is used to compare two strings. So I need to put a string as the parameter, as the argument to this method. So now I'm seeing if the user's choice, which is a string, equals the string scissors. I'm going to have to do the same thing. Oops, and very importantly, do not put a semicolon after your if statement. Let's go ahead and use this method then in our other comparisons where we're comparing now strings and not integers. Remember, to fix your code, you have to first break your code. All right, same thing down here. Remember, when we're comparing strings, string can only be compared to a string with the equals, or equals ignores case operator. And note that our logic is still saying the same. Okay, so our algorithm is still staying the same. It's just how we are implementing it. So now we're implementing it with strings. And voila, we'll do Control A, Control I, select all and then indent correctly. And that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and run this. Ooh, we have an error. Oh, we forgot one of our parentheses. Control S. And it's telling me that computer choice may not have been initialized. It's always good when we get errors like that. What it's telling me is that if this if statement is not true, or any of these choices, we don't have a default, and it won't know what to put for computer choice. So to make our compiler happy, we'll go ahead and set them to some default value like rock. Oh, and I just noticed one other error that we had in our program. Note that you can use the equals operator with strings. Syntactically, this is correct. But remember, this is comparing the memory address of user choice to the memory address of computer choice and not the contents of the strings. So you do have to replace this with the equals or equals ignores case operator. Now note that I did not use the equals ignores case operator down here because when I take in that user choice, I went ahead and lowercased it, so I know it'll be lowercased. Okay, we'll go ahead and run this, and we'll choose rock, and the computer chose paper, and they of course won, and you can see that our game still works. Okay, last improvement we're going to make is instead of continuously running this thing, we are going to ask the user if they would like to play again. So we'll do a system out print line and say, would you like to play again? And then we're going to go ahead and take in that string called answer. And we'll use our keyboard object. And we'll go ahead and get the next line. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and use to lowercase their answer. And somehow I must have misspelled keyboard. I did up here. So I'll go ahead and correct that. All right, so we got our answer. And now we can check with the equals method again, because we are checking strings, if they typed in the word yes. And if they did, then we go ahead and we run this code again. Now note that I have this red underline under answer, and that's because of where I declared answer. I declared answer inside of the while loop, so he only can be seen inside of this while loop. So to see him outside of the while loop, I just need to declare him outside of the while loop. So come up to the top of your program and declare that string called answer. And now our code will run again as the user types in yes. So go ahead and run your code, see the better gameplay, and that's how we improved upon and then of course learned how to use strings inside of an algorithm.